Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Women's Fitness Academy podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ellen, a female empowerment coach. I specialize in binge eating, confidence, and all things mindset. Today I'm here with someone that I actually met in Bondi in Sydney, but we're both not from there. She's actually from the UK, so we're both kind of, I guess, foreigners in that country, even though I now live in Bali. It's someone that I've been thinking for ages, like, I need to get this girl on the podcast because she just has, like, her values align so much with mine. And I think that you girls are gonna, like, if you need to follow her page because it's so inspirational and just there's just so much good information there. Her name is Liv. She is an online coach and nutritionist. And yeah, Liv, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, like I said, like, I've been thinking for ages now that I need to have you on, but I just keep forgetting, and life just comes in the way.
Life is very busy. I hear you on that one.
Yes. So for the people who don't know you, who are you?
So as you said, my name is Liv. I live in Sydney, but judging by the accent, I'm not from here originally. So I grew up in Scotland, between Scotland and England, and now live in Bondi, which I love. So I am an accredited nutritionist. So I did my degree in the UK, and then shortly after I moved to Sydney, and I started my online coaching business around 3 years ago now, which originally was the classic, like, a little bit of a side hustle. Had a few online clients while doing in-person work. And then it just grew to be, I guess, what it is now. So I'm a full-time online coach. I specialize in working with females, and I guess my area of expertise, or the area I love to work in the most, is sustainable fat loss. So my approach is very much driven by education. I want my clients to understand, not just what to do, but actually how to do it consistently. And my number one goal with all of my clients is that they never have to diet again. So that just for me encompasses mindset, behavior change, habit building, relationship with food, relationship with self. So yeah, I love it, and I'm very lucky to do what I do. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, and you're very, very good at it as well. I think there's a lot of, like, coaches out there who probably shouldn't be coaches. I feel like it's kind of like a trend now to become an online coach. It's like, oh, I like going to the gym, I'm going to become an online coach. Or, like, I read one nutrition book, or, like, had a coach for 8 weeks, and now I want to become an online coach. And yeah, it's great to follow your passion and stuff, but I think it's also important to know how much time you have to put into it. And it's like, you go and get your makeup done, like, that doesn't mean that you're a makeup artist.
Yeah, exactly. No, I completely agree. But I think in my opinion, with that sort of thing, like, those people won't last. I think you do have to have a genuine passion, and you have to want to do it for the right reasons, because it is, as hard work, running a business and getting clients and supporting clients, and continuing to evolve as a coach yourself and continue to support your clients in so many avenues, that I do think, as much as the industry is very saturated in a way, I don't think it's awfully competitive, because I do think in the long run, the people that are doing it for the wrong reasons, or the people who are doing it for the attractive lifestyle that it might give you, i.e., bring your laptop to wherever, they, in my opinion, I don't think would last. So I do think the good people will stay, the good coaches will stay.
Yeah, for sure. So how long have you been coaching
now? Coming up for 5 years.
Yeah, we're pretty similar. I think I'm 5 years in July, maybe. Something like that. I feel like I started, like, or maybe August, like, just the financial year. I was like, oh, this is smart, like, start this new financial year. That's right.
Yeah, good timing.
Yeah. So have you always been interested in nutrition, or, like, what made you want to study nutrition?
Yeah, great question. I would say that my initial interest sparked from my mum. So myself and my two sisters, we were very lucky to grow up in a household where my mum was at home and she was cooking for us. She had a keen interest in health and fitness herself, and she very much kind of, parented us through that lens as well. Like, all our meals were home cooked. She was always looking for the next, healthy recipe. She, I guess, was a great role model in the sense that we saw her exercising. She had a PT as we were kids, all of that sort of stuff. So I think that initially sparked my interest. But also I was a very sporty kid. I loved being active. I played every sport available to me and I loved it. And I can remember from a very young age being, at home on a weekend and taking myself off on a run because I thought it was really cool to go and, want to exercise that wasn't necessarily at PE at school. So I think it was somewhat ingrained in me to have that lifestyle in a sense. But it wasn't until later that I kind of discovered nutrition and actually realized that you could go and study it. So towards my kind of later years in school, I thought I would maybe go and do sports science. I remember considering physiotherapy and that sort of thing. And I think on my quest to do that, that's when I stumbled across nutrition. And I honestly count myself so lucky to be in the position that I am now, because I found nutrition, I read about it, I did some work experience, and I was like, this is my thing, this is it. And I've never once questioned it since then. And, having spoken to my sisters and I guess like close friends who are still in that space where they're like, oh, I'm not really sure like what my passion is, I'm not really sure what I want to do. They have lots of different interests, and they've always come back to me and said, oh my God, you're so lucky you knew what you wanted to do. And I didn't realize I was until having those conversations. So yeah, I guess that was my initial kind of, interest. I, as I said, went on to study nutrition at university for 3 years in Sheffield. And then, shortly after moved out here.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I 100% agree with your friends and with you as well. Like, we are so lucky to have found our passion, and like I feel like with every single cell in my body that this is what I'm meant to do. But I do talk to so many people who've gone to university for like I don't know how many years, and then they finish their degree and have this huge debt, and then it's like, you know what, I actually don't like this anymore. And it's so sad. And I mean, you're never too old to change your path, right? Like my mom, I think she was 40 or something when she went back to uni and did a completely different degree, and now she does something completely different than what she did when she was 20. And so I think that's something that you just have to remember, that you don't have to have it all figured out, and if you don't like it, you can always leave.
Yeah, absolutely. Life is too short to spend your time doing what you don't want to be doing, or doing what you don't enjoy. So yeah, I'm completely on the same page about that. I think, follow, as cliche as it sounds, follow your passions, follow your dreams. And yeah, as I said, very lucky to have stumbled across something that, more than 5 years ago, probably 8 or 9 years ago now, that I was like, oh my gosh, this is my thing. And to still be, 8 years down the track and still be like, this is my thing. Like, I count myself lucky every day. I mean, it looks very different now to what I originally thought it would look like, but grateful either way.
Yeah. What has been, because a lot of the girls who listen to this podcast, they either study with us with the Women's Fitness Academy, or they might have already studied, or they're thinking about studying and want to start their own business. Like, do you have any advice for the people who are like, should I take the step?
Yeah, that is a great question. Part of me thinks I'm still asking for advice on this question. So you're maybe not asking the right person. But no, I think for me, those types of big decisions, I'll always try and come back to my values, and I'll always try and come back to my strengths. clients. And that's definitely easier said than done, but I do think you can be a fantastic nutritionist or dietitian or health wellness coach, whatever it may be, but not be online. I think that to be online, you have to have quite a specific set of skills. And some people would honestly really, really thrive more in an in-person setting. And for me personally, I've become quite an introvert. I find it pretty exhausting to be around people. And so as I've got to know myself better, and I guess as I've developed my skills, I've really come to realize that actually being online is the best place for me as a nutritionist, because I can structure my time really well. I'm not going to be overloaded with clients on a day-to-day basis because I'm in charge of my schedule. And for me, that comes back to delivering the best service I can. If I was in a one-to-one clinic, you know, seeing 10 clients a day or more maybe, I know that my service level would drop because I would feel very emotionally exhausted. So I guess when, working out what's right for you or not, as I said, for me, it would be coming back to my values and asking myself, what impact do I want to have on other people? And, you know, where do my strengths lie? And I guess if you were to reverse the roles, if I was to be a client, you know, who do I want to be working with? What do they need? And letting that guide you. And as I said, easier said than done. It's definitely not going to be an overnight process, but those little steps. And I think for me, I write everything down, and I like to get my thoughts out on paper. And for me, that just helps kind of navigate the trajectory of my business decisions or my life decisions, I guess, as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it sometimes we can get a little bit in our heads and having that conversation back and forth, like, what is it that I actually want to do? And one day it's like, I want to be a PT, and the next day, no, I want to do online, and the next day it's like, oh, I actually want to work in a flower shop. It can get quite overwhelming. And like, we're so lucky to grow up at this age because there's so many opportunities that you could literally just let go of everything now, and then tomorrow you could probably have a new job. But it's like overwhelming because it's like almost like too many opportunities. Like, where do you even start?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like decision paralysis, right? When you've got so many choices in front of you, you end up making no choice. Whereas if you had, you know, 2 or 3 options, you're probably a lot more likely to make a choice quicker and, you know, keep moving forwards.
Yeah, definitely. So with your business, it's always, but you work a little bit in clinics, don't you? Or you're not doing that anymore? Or
no, so I do a little bit of I guess I call it government work. So I do a little bit of contracted work for New South Wales Health. So I am what they call a nutrition leader in their healthy eating programs for kids. So that's just very much part-time. I just do a couple of hours a week during the school term. So we go into schools and community centres and deliver essentially a syllabus of healthy eating and behaviour change programs to kids and their families, which I love. But yes, that's very separate to the work I do, you know, for my business.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think it's cool that you're wearing like a few different hats and, you know, trying on a few different things and seeing, you know, what really works for you. And obviously it is the online stuff. Otherwise you wouldn't still be doing it 5 years later.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with your online clients, like, what is the type of people that you normally tends to work with? Like, what do they normally struggle with?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, predominantly now I only work with females. And I guess if I was to think about all of the clients that I have now and amalgamate them into one person, typically they are someone who has dieted their whole life. So they've been on track, off track, yo-yoing, doing gym challenges, doing, you know, fat loss shreds, all of that sort of thing. And they are someone who hasn't found the thing that works for them. And very often what happens is that because of their history with dieting and their history with every single thing they found, they come out the other side and they are frustrated because they haven't found what's worked for them. They've put so much time, energy, and sometimes a lot of money into these different programs, and to come out, in square one, or even in a worse off place, can be very disheartening. So they can end up being quite frustrated. They can often have really low self-worth as well, because we as a human species will tend to blame ourselves for a lot of things. So very often I'll speak to clients who blame themselves for not having enough motivation, or not having the willpower, or for knowing what to do but just not being able to do it consistently. And that can be a really damaging place to be in, because they end up adopting the mentality of nothing works for me because I just can't do it. And they're thinking it's a them problem, when it's absolutely not a them problem. I guess second to that is that after, often a decade or more of dieting, they have a very poor relationship with food, and they have a very poor relationship with their body. So I guess all of my clients have at least one of those few things that I've just mentioned. And I always tell them that they need to be in the right space to want to work with me, because my approach is very, very different to what they might have done previously. They're not going to lose large amounts of weight very quickly. They're not going to, be put on a meal plan where they're told to just follow that and stick to that. They're not going to be cutting out social occasions. So I guess I need buy-in from my clients that they're willing to take the sustainable approach. They're willing to invest in their education, and ultimately they're willing to invest time. I work with clients I have clients now that have worked with me for years. So that just goes to show, I guess, how long it can take to not only, transform physically, but transform mentally. And that's a big area that I focus on, because that is truly what is going to give them the results, or the tools that they need in order to maintain their results in the long run. So I guess I like to see my approach, my way of coaching, my ethos, my values as their last stop on their kind of dieting train. As I said when we first started chatting, my number one goal with all of my clients is that they never have to go in search of another diet again. That in 6 months or a year's time, when we're not working together anymore, they don't ever have to go looking for the next 6-week challenge or the next whatever equivalent, because they are clear and confident in saying, this is what works for me. I know how to practice it consistently, and I know how to, nurture the other areas of my lifestyle and environment in order to facilitate that. So yeah.
No, I love that. And I think that every coach should have that as their goal, that, you don't want to just, that's what I hate with all these challenges. I'm not going to name any names, but there's a few companies in Bondi who will literally put people on these like starvation diets with 1,200 calories, as if like 1,200 calories is like some kind of magic number that makes you lose weight. I don't know where it even comes from. And then put them on these 1,200 calorie diets, and they do this 8-week challenge and lose a bunch of weight, because obviously they're not eating anything. And then they have no support. So obviously they come back for the next challenge as well. And then the company just makes more and more money. And it's sad, so sad that these challenges are still running. And that's why it's so good that there are people like yourself out there who look at fat loss as a sustainable way, and has a sustainable approach to it, where it's not just about, okay, who can lose the most weight the quickest, and the person who loses the most weight gets the prize.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with what you're saying. Unfortunately, though, my approach is just not sexy. It's hard to sell in a way. Not that I ever do try and sell it, but I guess, my Instagram and what I post on my Instagram is essentially, me marketing my coaching. And it is hard to make it look sexy, because you're not going to be put on a meal plan that you don't have to think about and that you just have to follow. You're not going to lose 6 kilos in 6 weeks. You do have to, as I said, invest time, invest energy, and invest in your education, and kind of go through the sticky stuff, go through the body image work and the self-compassion work and the mindfulness work, because those things are the things that are going to support you in the long run. And that can be, for a lot of people, really, really hard to do, especially when they've had their lifetime of dieting and all these negative behaviors and thought processes have come as a result of that. It's incredibly tough work to start to think, okay, the way in which I think about food is not benefiting me in the slightest. How do we start to unpack that? And the same for their body. The way in which you speak about yourself and the mentality you hold around yourself is directly responsible for your success, you know, with your nutrition and with your diet. And very often, before you can even start to manipulate your food and take a little bit more control of your food, if fat loss is the goal, like, you have to be working on your mindset. You have to be thinking about, how am I speaking to myself? How am I talking about my food? How am I viewing my social occasions? And yeah, that's the sticky stuff, and that's the stuff that takes time, and that's the stuff that's not sexy when people want, you know, a quick fix and they want to have their results in 6 weeks. It's hard. So that's why I guess those approaches and challenges that you've just mentioned do stick around and do still do well, because they look sexy, and the people on the front of the billboards and the Instagram pages look sexy too. And, you know, we're humans. We are always going to be enticed by marketing like that.
Yeah, of course. And also, like, it's hard to market someone's change of mindset, because it's not like you have a clear before and after photo of someone who, like with weight loss, if someone loses 10 kilos, it's quite easy to see that they have lost 10 kilos. But if someone has gone from being really toxic and really a lot of self-destructive behaviors and like numbing themselves and hating their body and really negative self-talk, to having this, you know, positive mindset and understanding how to regulate the nervous system, and, you know, really truly embodying who they actually are and showing the self-compassion and acceptance, like, how are you going to see that in 2 different photos? Like, you probably see it in person, because, you know, the energy of that person will be so different. But, you know, do you know, just as well as I do, with social media, it's quite easy to just put on a smile and be like, yeah, great, everything's fine, even though you're actually, you know, turn the camera off and you start crying.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really difficult, I think, to see as a coach in my space with my values and my philosophy. But at the end of the day, there'll always be areas of every given industry that you don't like. And ultimately, in the long run, it will make people with my values, my philosophy, and my coaching ethos stand out, because we are the people that are doing, hopefully, the really good, really beneficial work with people. And slowly but surely, you know, as I said before, the good people will stick around.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. So if someone is listening to this and they're like, I have so much weight to lose, how the fuck am I going to start loving myself before I lose weight? Like, where would that person start?
Yeah, fantastic question. I think when you come or you start from a place of having disordered thinking patterns towards yourself and towards your food, like, that really needs to be the place that you start. So, you know, body image work, probably my first starting point with a client. And I always say, to kind of explain this to someone who may not have heard about self-compassion or may not be familiar with it, is the idea that if you don't like something, why the hell would you want to take care of it? And when we put that thinking onto ourselves, it's, if you don't like your body, if you don't like yourself, if you're not accepting of who you are, why the hell are you going to want to start exercising or eating healthy? And I guess another thing I always come back to with my clients is, you cannot hate yourself into change. You have to love yourself into change. So I guess a great starting point would be, the various avenues of body image work, which would definitely encompass self-compassion. And for many people, this is going to look really, really different. My philosophy as a coach is to meet clients where they're at. So, you know, ultimately, the client's journey may look very similar to someone else who's struggling with the same thing, but where we start is very different depending on what they feel they can manage at the time. So it might just be starting with a little bit of journaling in the avenues towards body image and self-compassion. It might be starting off with some meditation. It might just be starting with 15 minutes of phone-free time in nature every day. So ultimately, there's a plethora of things we can call on. But for me as a coach, I will always say to my clients, okay, these are a few options. These are what I'd love to do eventually. What do you feel is manageable for you to start with? And over time, what you typically see is when the client does invest in those practices and adhere to those practices in whatever capacity they are capable of at the time, the behaviors that they're trying so hard to work towards without them start to become more naturally. So they start to move their body more because they love to move their body and because they want to celebrate their body. They start to want to, you know, do a grocery shop and start cooking some meals from home because they actually want to nourish their body and help it recover from the exercise they've done. So ultimately, as I said, you know, a very slow process in some cases, but the biggest thing is to meet the client where they're at and for the coach to come to the client and say, these are a few options. What do you feel you could start with this week? Because ultimately, adherence is the goal as well. I would much rather start a client with a few different, you know, body image related or self-compassion related practices that they can stick to, that they find really easy for a total of, you know, 25 minutes a week, as opposed to saying, okay, this is what you have to do every single day. I want 10 minutes of journaling, 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of time in nature. And for them to go, oh my God, that's so overwhelming. I'm definitely not going to do that. So starting easy and starting, from the rung one on the ladder, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, and if anyone's watching this on YouTube, you'd be like, I'm just like sitting like this, like a dog. Because I don't want to say, yeah, after everything you say, it's just annoying to listen to. But yes, I agree with everything that you just said. And I think it's so important that we shift this mindset of, like you said, hating your body into change. And unfortunately, it's so like advertised, like you look like lose 5 kilos, like feel like stop feeling guilty, or like, oh, did you overeat this week and do this to burn the fat, and like shredding like everything is quite like advertised in a guilty way, like hitting people's pain points really. So, and you can only motivate yourself out of guilt for so long, right? Like you have to start flipping that to, okay, how do I want to feel? How can I show my body respect and nourishment and understanding and acceptance? And I just love everything that you just said, because it's so freaking true. Like you need to really, like, if you didn't love it, you wouldn't want to look after it. And I just love that so much. But for someone who's listening that might just be very new to this whole self-compassion kind of way, like you mentioned a few ways that you could show yourself more self-compassion. Do you have any other tips for client or people who want to start, you know, showing themselves a bit more love and focusing on nourishing and nurturing themselves instead of hating themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So self-compassion actually has 3 different pillars. So Kristen Neff is a psychologist who specializes in self-compassion and research, and she kind of frames self-compassion as having these 3 pillars. So number 1 is self-kindness. So kind of what I've just spoken about is, and again, something I like to come back to with my clients is, if you wouldn't say that to a loved one, why would you say that about yourself? So noticing, starting to develop awareness and noticing the language you use on yourself, on your food as well. So as you start to become more aware of that, what I encourage my clients to do is to call themselves out on it on the spot. So if they notice themselves talking in a negative manner towards themselves, is to kind of stop and to take a pause and to say, actually, no, I would not say that to my sister or my mom or my best friend. So I'm actually going to reframe that on the spot. So that's self-kindness. Common humanity is the second pillar, which is all about recognizing that we are human, we make mistakes, and everyone at some point throughout their life is going to go through very similar struggles to us. And so this is about not isolating yourself in your suffering and recognizing that actually what you're feeling right now is not just you. It's not a you problem. It's everyone is going to go through this at some stage in your life. And for me and my clients, this is just about gaining some perspective in terms of it's not all about you. It's we are just a tiny speck on this universe, and there are so many other world issues, global issues, countrywide issues that are so much bigger than us. And I guess that might seem like a bit of a weird avenue to go down, but it is really helpful to go, you know what, how I look in the mirror this morning and how I feel a little bit uncomfortable in these jeans, like, yes, that's uncomfortable for me in the moment, but actually in the big scheme of things, it's that if that's my primary concern at the moment, like, how lucky am I? So yeah, not isolating yourself in your suffering. And then I guess, all the pillars, bleed into different practices. So as I said, journaling is a great place to start. Meditation is a fantastic place to start. Time in nature, time away from social media as well is a big thing. So something I'll often say to my clients is filter who you're following. And what I like to play into with this one is asking them, does your social media reflect the average person that you would see walking down the street every day? And for most people, the answer is no. For most people, their social media is filled with celebrities and models and you name it. And chances are they're not reflective of the people that we would see, in day-to-day life. And so that's why I encourage my clients to make sure that they are either, unfollowing or muting those people, or just diversifying their following so that they are actually exposing themselves to humans and bodies and people that are reflective of humanity as a whole. So yeah, there's an abundance of ways, and journaling might not be for everyone. That's absolutely fine. Some people might not be in social media in the first place, in which case, fantastic. So again, yeah, coming back to the client and going through these things, I think a big thing with both the language you use to talk about yourself, but also the language you might use when you're journaling, especially when it comes to body image style work, is shifting your perspective from body appearance to body functionality. So rather than focusing on what you look like or what others look like, it's focusing on how your body supports you, what your body does for you on a day-to-day basis. And so some really common journal prompts that I use with my clients are, how did my body support me in doing what I love today? How can I show my body love today? And for me, they're two really big ones that I'll always come back to, because it really is shifting your perspective back to, oh, my body allowed me to walk down the beach this morning and go and meet my friend and grab a coffee, or my body allowed me to deadlift X many kilos in the gym, or simply my body allowed me to embrace my partner, like those sorts of things. And when you can start to journal and for that to be a consistent practice for you, automatically you start to become a little bit more aware of your language, and you'll notice your language in your brain, outside of the journaling practice, start to shift as well.
Yeah, there were some really good and helpful tips there. And guys, if you're listening to this, I urge you to rewind, write it down so that you don't forget it, because I think you gave some really, really good practical tips that people can actually just start doing now. And if you're at the position where you truly can't afford a coach, or you don't want to have a coach for some reason, like these are just really simple things that you can actually start doing now. Like journaling, anyone can pick up a piece of paper and write something down, or meditation, or walking in nature. Like anyone can do all these things. It's just we tend to make up excuses to why we can't. We don't have time, and I'm too busy. It's not the right time to do it right now, or But it just comes down to you. Really, you're the only one who can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think lowering the barrier of entry as well. I speak to a lot of clients and a lot of potential clients that overcomplicate things for themselves, which is so common and is a very universal issue. And I definitely do this for myself, across other avenues of my life. But we tend to think that we need to be doing 100 things, and we need to be doing 100 things at once every single day. And part of the reason why I think it's so valuable in having a coach is that they are able to break things down into manageable, practical steps for you on a day-to-day basis. So, if journaling seems like this really overwhelming, yucky, sticky task for you, then if you're open to trying it, how about we just dedicate 5 minutes on a Sunday evening once a week? Or, if spending time in nature without your phone is, really quite anxiety inducing, how about we just go for a 5-minute lap around the block, after dinner one evening a week? And for me, with my clients, that's what it's about. It's about going, okay, I'd love you to be practicing this. How would you feel that would work into your week? And very often they'll say, okay, let me try 10 minutes 4 times a week. I'm like, no. Let's just do 5 minutes twice a week. Let's start there. Because again, I would rather them be able to pick that habit twice a week because they find it fairly manageable than miss that habit twice a week because they've tried to do more than they're capable of at that time. And that has a couple of benefits. Obviously, you're developing the habit in itself and you're becoming more consistent with the practice, but also it has unbelievable benefits mentally as well when you're building that confidence in yourself that, oh my gosh, something I didn't do a month ago, I now do twice a week for 5 minutes. That has incredible positive benefits in terms of self-efficacy and self-confidence, which is something we really want to be striving for in, if we want to be successful in dieting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of wanting to go from 0 to 100 in one way, like if you listen to this and you like that, like that's normal. Like most people are like that. They want to change everything straight away. And that's why like these diets are so successful, like the 6-week diet, because you just change everything straight away and you get crazy results. But then because you've done it too fast, it's going to feel overwhelming. It's not going to be sustainable. So it really shows your expertise as a coach that you are able to say, no, like you might know that, yes, okay, 4 days a week in the gym is probably going to be more beneficial for your strength gains and results than 2 days. But 2 days is going to be the most beneficial in the long run if it means that you can stick to it and it feels something that's achievable. So I think that really speaks so much about you and how much of an expert you are in your field that you can actually say, no, let's only do this because you know that if they do too much, they will most likely fall off the track because they've been too overwhelmed.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
So listening to you speak and like obviously like looking at your Instagram, and I know you like personally as well, have you always had this like healthy relationship to food and to your body? Because like your page is very like sustainable weight loss, like you're okay with yourself in every, I know you just lost a little bit of weight, but you were fully okay with your body before that as well. Yeah, talk to me about that.
Yeah, I guess I count myself as very lucky and privileged to have always had a really healthy relationship with my body, with my food, and with the way in which I exercise, which for a long time I battled with that. I battled with the fact I had such a great, and still do have such a great relationship with my body, my food, and my exercise.
Really?
Because, yeah, I guess this is something I've not really ever spoken about, but, for so many people getting into this industry, it's off the back of having disordered eating or eating disorders, or having had a tumultuous relationship in some area of their life with regards to food, exercise, and body. And people coming to like recover themselves and going through that healing journey, you know, are inspired and driven and passionate about then helping others in the same position. And that for a lot of people is why they become a coach, which I think is so fantastic. And I guess as I weave my way through this industry and, you know, try to continue to develop my business and my coaching with clients, is I've really come to realize that I'm not one of those people. And for a long time, I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't use my previous experience because I haven't had a disordered relationship with food. So I guess it's a tough one. So yeah, I would say in answer to your question, I am very lucky to have had a very positive relationship in all of that sphere. Not to say I don't have bad days. Like I definitely have days where I struggle with my body image, or I'm not so happy with my food for weeks on end and I'm in a bit of a rut. But by no means have I ever encountered, anything close to disordered eating or an eating disorder. And I guess for myself, it presented in the way of imposter syndrome for a long time. Like, who am I to be coaching clients who had a history of eating disorders when I haven't had one myself? And I did a lot of work on this, and I guess it's pushed me to just educate myself further. And so, after my degree, I did another course. I now have, a few separate mentors in the nutrition space. And that is something that I will never let go of. And I will always continue to strive to educate myself and to be as best as I can as a coach as possible, and be able to support my clients on a variety of issues, obviously, which within my scope of practice. But yeah, I think in the online space, I consider it quite rare to be in the position I'm in, because I obviously know your background, which is fantastic to now be in the space that you're in. But yeah, I consider it quite rare to be where I am with the values and the passion that I have with my clients, but to have not been there myself.
Yeah, no, it is. But I think it's so great that you can speak about it, because I remember last time Women's Fitness Academy was here, someone brought it up and they said, like, I just feel a bit bad because like I have never really struggled with any of this stuff. And she said she struggled to relate to her clients, which I can understand, because there's certain things that my clients might talk about that, with kids, for example, like you can't relate to something if you haven't truly experienced it. But also it doesn't mean that you're not going to be a good coach, like for yourself. Like you have gone out, you might have done more study and research in this area than someone who has actually gone through it. And also, just because you've gone through an eating disorder doesn't mean that you can coach people through it. Like if what works for you is probably not going to work for anyone, like for the next person. Like it's anyone who's gone through eating disorder recovery, like I can almost guarantee you, if you ask the next person, your friend who's gone through it, it's going to be a very different story of how they recovered. And like when you have actually studied this area and worked with good mentors and also clients, you're going to learn that. So I think like what you're doing it's so great. And obviously, you are really successful. You're so good at what you do. And I think it really shows on your page that you are truly embodying everything that you're believing in, and that you're one of the good ones.
Thank you. Yeah, no, for me, it just comes back to, again, my values of being authentic to myself, and also to be, education driven and evidence-based driven. So, as I said, I have multiple mentors, both for business and for nutrition, who I continue to rely on and continue to, troubleshoot with them over, things that I need help on. And that will just remain a constant for me. And I think I'm also big in, I know I'm not going to be able to help everyone. And that for me is almost a superpower, because I want whoever comes to me to have the best possible service. And if I have someone that wants to work with me that I don't think I'm the right person for them, I will always refer out and I will help them find someone that is the right person for them. So I guess I've come to this place through a bit of that sticky work now, and I think, okay, I know I'm not going to be able to help everyone, and that's okay. And if I do ever have someone that comes to me and presents in ways that I can't support them with, then, you know, I now have the privilege to be able to help them to find someone that can. So I guess that's where I've kind of landed in my thinking around all of that. And as I said, you know, education is a big thing for me. It will always be. And I'm under the impression that, you know, if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. So that will always drive me forwards. And I think hopefully continue to be able to benefit my clients in more and more ways with the further study and education and reading and research that I do.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think I've read that quote somewhere, I can't remember where it was, but I was like, yes, this is so true, because I think there's a lot of quotes out there that are the opposite, like you should always be the smartest person or the hardest worker and but then, like, yeah, you are in the wrong room really if you want to keep growing and keep developing as a person. So yeah, I agree with everything that you said. Liv, it's been so nice to talk to you. And thank you so much again for coming on. Before we go, do you where can people find you? Are you taking on clients?
Yeah, amazing. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real honor and such a breath of fresh air to talk about this sort of stuff, because I know we align on a lot of the same thinking. So that's been amazing. Yes, you can find me on Instagram at livbellmac_nutrition. And I am currently, the next intake of my group coaching program starts in 2 weeks. So if you were interested in knowing more or becoming a client, Bloom is my group coaching platform, which I am just so in love with. And the community that's developing in there, I just could not be more obsessed with. So the next intake starts on the 12th of June and the sign-ups goes live on Monday, the 29th of May. So if you are interested in knowing more, flick me a quick message on Instagram. I'd be more than happy to chat with anyone who might be interested.
Amazing. And yeah, I highly recommend that you follow Liv. She has really great educational content, and a lot of, like, I love that you're sharing a lot of your own personal journey as well and what you're going through. I think it's very relatable for people.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much again for jumping on. Obviously we will tag Liv in the show notes, so you can just scroll down and click on the link. But guys, as usual, if you like this episode, make sure that you are taking a screenshot, that you're putting it on your story, that you're tagging myself, tag Liv, tag Women's Fitness Academy. Let us know what you thought, and yeah, let's connect over the gram. But Liv, thank you again for coming on, and everyone who's been listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good day.
Thank you.